The WGA writer strike has been over for a couple of weeks now, and we're already starting to see the signs that while it did initially appear that the WGA absolutely wiped the studios out in negotiations, basically got concessions on every single thing that they wanted, that it likely isn't going to be the windfall that they might have imagined when they inked the deal. Sure, they got a lot of wins on paper, but in reality, it's likely to affect them for a very long time. This is going to have far-reaching effects into the future, but we are not here to speculate about the future, because that is absolutely speculation. But we can talk about the here and now and what was actually lost. It turns out the WGA strikes combined with the SAG-AFTRA strikes has cost a ton of jobs and a lot of money. The amount of money that you can't even really comprehend until you actually start talking about it. Now let's get into some of the details. A September report from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics found that there were 45,000 fewer jobs in the motion picture and sound recording industries, a decrease related to Hollywood labor disputes. The report notes the drop happened since May. The film and TV sector also lost 7,000 jobs just in September. This report is one of the first glimpses into the full economic impact the WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes had on the entertainment industry. The May timing coincides with the start of the WGA strike, which went into effect on May 2nd. It was then followed by the SAG-AFTRA strike, which started on July 14th. There you have it, folks. 45,000 fewer jobs in the motion picture and sound recording industries and 7,000 fewer jobs in the television industry. And obviously, those aren't all like acting jobs. Those aren't all writing jobs, because these strikes absolutely affected far more people than that. Those jobs are like set designers. Those jobs are like composers. Those jobs are people that worked on the sets, maybe hairdressers, makeup artists, special effects artists, practical effects, all that kind of stuff were impacted by this. And that is an enormous amount of jobs lost, especially kind of, I don't know, honed in right in on California, a state that probably can't afford to be losing 45,000 jobs right about now. They're not exactly the most prosperous state in the union as it is. And now they've lost, 52,000 jobs in total, all coinciding with these strikes. And you're definitely going to start seeing more jobs being lost. More of these production deals are getting shut down. They're being allowed to run out and they're not being renewed. So that's less writing jobs. That's less acting jobs. Obviously, that's going to mean even fewer jobs for people that are actually working and supporting the entertainment industry, your logistic workers and stuff like that. And it's all coming out because just the stunning losses associated with everybody deciding that cable wasn't what they thought it should be. It's time to go be a streamer like Netflix. We can compete with them because we've got all of our own content. And then realizing the just gigantic amounts of money that you have to spend just to keep up with the other streamers out there. And it turns out it has not been a profitable venture for a lot of these studios. And they are absolutely going to use this deal that they've struck with the WGA to make even more cuts, because they have to save their own bacon. They've got to get their own financial houses in order. And all these studios lost a ton of money as well. When you think about all the jobs that were lost, just movies not being in production, television not being in production, having to scramble and come up with new programs to fill out the fall schedule and all that kind of stuff. And it's had a huge impact as far as loss of jobs. It's probably had a bigger impact as far as the loss of money. This report is absolutely insane. The first 100 days of the Hollywood writers' strike has cost the California economy $3 billion. A Cal State Northridge professor says. Todd Holmes, a professor of entertainment industry management at the San Fernando Valley School, further warned that the strikes last until October, which would be a record for the industry. The economic cost could reach $5 billion. CNBC reported. The actual figure is likely higher, the report said, because the Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television, and radio artists joined the WGA on the picket lines in July, which did not happen during the last walkout. And the way that this professor mapped it out is he went to the last time that there was a sustained strike by the WGA. He looked at the economic losses and impacts on California there, actually counted in inflation, rise of cost of goods and all that stuff into that, and came with this $3 billion number for the first 100 days. And it says if it lasted until October. Well, certainly it didn't last all the way to October, but pretty damn close. And that number was $5 billion. And the report itself admitted it was likely quite a bit more than that, because we actually had the SAG-AFTRA strike as well as a radio artist strike going up at the same time, further complicating and impacting basically the entire economy of California. They might have lost like $7 billion or something like that as far as like a 4-month window. What an enormous impact for the state of California and the citizens there, which are already struggling as it is without losing that much money, that much income going to the state. And of course, we're not done yet. SAG-AFTRA is still going on. It's not like they can just start filming movies right now. They can't just go make a movie tomorrow. You can't just go make a scripted television show tomorrow. You have no actors to work on it. You can do non-scripted stuff. You can probably do improv, stuff like that, where I imagine the performers have like a different type of contract because it's not so much acting out a script or something like that. While there are things that they can do right now that they couldn't do before the WGA strike was over, but there's still a shitload of stuff that they can't go into production with. And I imagine this number is just going to go rise, rise, and rise. And it kind of looks like, you know, SAG-AFTRA might be in the driver's seat. They might have all the leverage in the situation against the studios. They already made all these concessions to the writers, but really they're giving the studios all the ammo in the world that they ever needed to make wide sweeping like cuts and changes to their production schedules and really lowering budgets. Like think about Disney Plus. I believe Secret Invasion cost $220 million to produce that we know of. $220 million for a show on fucking Disney Plus. Do you ever think Bob Iger and Kevin Feige are going to greenlight another show on Disney Plus related to the MCU for $220 million? It's absolutely absurd. And at this point, with the reaction and fallout of Secret Invasion, how many subscribers do you think they gained for that $220 million that we know of? Maybe zero? Was it a negative loss? Did more people leave because they saw it than actually showed up because they wanted to watch it? They're going to start making some really hard decisions, and it is absolutely going to cut the writers and the actors to the bone, because what does sound like the SAG-AFTRA strikes are likely to be over, hopefully within the week, but I don't think it's going to last that much longer because they do need to start and get these movies that they have ready, the scripts ready, the production's ready, the budget's greenlit and all that stuff. They want to go into production. They need to get the stuff rolling because you can only stop for so long. But after that, they're going to make some really hard decisions. Speaking of SAG-AFTRA, this is what we know as far as where they are. Progress continues to be made on a new contract between SAG-AFTRA and the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, as the two sides announced in a joint statement that talks will continue on Friday. Negotiations will then pause for the weekend while the Guild and the studios work internally, then restart on Monday. Optimism was high going into this week that a deal can be reached on issues such as streaming compensation, AI consent, and higher pay for various types of performers, considering that the studio CEOs are approaching the talks with the same urgency and engagement that they used during talks with the Writers Guild of America last month. And I imagine the studio executives are very anxious to get this all over with so they can actually start getting back to producing television and movies and figuring out what the future is going to be. But they're also going to take these negotiations and the concessions that they did have to make and come up with a new scheme when it comes to greenlighting stuff. What are the budgets for these things? And I think in the end, the WGA and SAG-AFTRA will likely to be able to claim victory because of all the concessions, but will likely have hurt themselves and shot themselves in the dick in the long run by the amount of jobs and stuff that aren't going to be there. And we know it's already cost, 52,000 jobs in total that we know of, and likely over $5 billion to this day, as far as what has been lost within the industry and the state of California when it comes to its actual economy. So the costs already are astronomical when you just think about the fallout of just 3 or 4 months of striking by the WGA, and then obviously SAG-AFTRA jumped in. But long term, it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. And I think they hamstrung themselves with a pretty bad deal in the long run. And certainly this was a concern from a lot of people when they saw the fallout and the negotiations and what actually came out of it. In fact, I had a conversation with my good friend Aaron Sparrow about all the concessions that were made and many of the ways that you could kind of see almost immediately that this was actually going to backfire on the Writers Guild Association and likely SAG-AFTRA once that deal's done as well. Definitely check this out right here. There's also a link in the video description.